I don't have anything exciting today. Should that be a surprise? Probably not. I don't also have any particular plans for trying to do a particular type of video editing. This is just going to be me talking to you. Because something happened today that just flooded back some memories, and I wanted to share them. Not necessarily with you, because there is no one out there watching these, but someday in the archive of life, my kids 30 years from now will find this and go, oh, so that was our dad. I never knew that about him. Nonetheless, this is also not a paid promotion, okay? There is a company, I think they're out of Los Angeles, called La La Land Records. It's a record label that specializes in putting out film scores. And they do some fantastic TV series film scores and movie film scores, and they remaster them, usually, I assume always, but they make expanded versions of old ones that have been out of print for ages. I mean, they just some great stuff. They've got lots of Star Trek sound scores. They've got lots of the WB series, X-Files, you name it, and lots of films I don't like either. They're just a great resource. And one of the things they've been doing over the last few years has been releasing expanded and remastered versions of the James Bond films, and which many of the James Bond films, in my opinion, are some of the best scores ever done. And I'm eagerly awaiting their release of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is my favorite. But this morning they announced Moonraker. Now, I don't want to get into the debate as to whether or not Moonraker is a good film or not. I love the film. Is it the best James Bond film? Is it my favorite? Maybe. I don't know. But I will tell you why. And that is the point of this. I have noticed that a lot of times when you hear an interview with a filmmaker, and to clarify, I am not comparing myself to a filmmaker. I have the interest. I don't have the talent, the time, the motivation, whatever. But I hear things that they say that resonate with me. And one of the most common things that you hear is that there is a movie, there is a time, there is an experience that they had, usually in a theater, watching a movie when the whole thing just reached out and grabbed them, and they go, wow, that's what I want to do. And I had that experience, and it is with the movie Moonraker, and I will explain it to you right now. My grandmother used to, when I was young, really young, my grandmother used to watch the James Bond films when they came on TV. I never watched them. 8, 9, 10 years old. Every time I would look over, there was that goofy looking Sean Connery guy. And he was always like kissing somebody. And like I say, at 8 or 9, that really didn't really make me want to watch the movie, frankly. So I was aware of James Bond, but I was not a fan or even remotely knowledgeable on the subject. I had probably seen the opening gun barrel sequence for one or more of them, but apart from that, I really didn't have any kind of instant grab. In fact, I could barely recognize Sean Connery if I saw him when I was that age. He just was not a memorable looking human. But in 1979, some friends, we lived in a small town, didn't have a movie theater or anything like that. Some friends took me to a theater down in Tucson. Now in 79, I was about 14 or 15 years old. Oh, we're going to go see a James Bond film. All right, anything to get out of town and go do something. And it was a double feature. And they were showing Moonraker, and then on the back of it, The Spy Who Loved Me. So imagine I have no expectations, not a whole lot of interest, except that I see it's got space shuttles in it, and I'm a massive space shuttle nerd kind of thing back then, before the space shuttle had actually launched. And so we go down and we sit in this theater, and it's dark. It was a good sized theater too. Of course, I was a lot smaller, so maybe it wasn't a good sized theater, but it felt like a giant theater. And the gun barrel comes up, and which is is still a cool opening for any movie series. And what kind of idiots would try to tamper with that later on in the series? I don't know, but well, we can talk about that someday. And then you start off with a sequence with the space shuttle flying across the coast and being hijacked and blowing up, and that was cool. That was cool. It was like, this is like science fiction type film that I would enjoy. But it's all right. It's cool. And then you cut to British intelligence, and oh my God, the shuttle's been stolen. Get 007 on the line, and they cut to 007, and what's he doing? Freaking kissing somebody. But at age 14, 15, I was far less disinclined to watching that at the time. And then it's a betrayal. Oh, it's a fight. Big deal. Again, big deal. 1,000 fights in movies I've seen over the years. And, and comparatively speaking, if you want to talk about 007 fights, From Russia with Love, Red Grant on the Orient Express, wow. The fight on the plane in Moonraker, But at the time, it was just, I didn't know about the fight, but it was just an ordinary fight. And he pushes the guy out. They were going to toss him in. He kicks the guy out. Ha, ha, ha. And then, surprise, Bond is knocked out of the plane. If you've seen the film, you know this sequence, but this is important. And in that moment, big fallout, full screen sound, the wind, and I was like, I was not expecting that. This is bad. And then you see the camera shot cuts to showing the pilot who'd fallen out earlier, who had a parachute on, in the kind of waiting to deploy the chute phase. And Bond looks down at him, and it all starts to just congeal in your mind what's going on. Because when he pulls his hands back and he fucking swoops down on that guy like a peregrine, and the Bond movie music swells up in the theater, it was the most amazing thing I had ever seen in a film or movie, bar none. It was just, that is the moment. That is the moment when I looked at that and like, this is a movie that has spurred me to some sort of emotional response. In this case, it was excitement, and it was tingling the hair on the back of the neck. I mean, it was phenomenal moment and carried me away, and absolutely, and I can play that in my head over and over again because I've seen it 100 times since that day. And not only was it a fantastic moment for me at the cinema, it was the best I think I've ever encountered. I'm not saying it's deep, I'm not saying it's emotional, it is what hit me with the most impact. It was the right time, the right place, the right film, the right theater. The conditions were perfect. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And, later we watch The Spy Who Loved Me, and he goes off a cliff with a parachute and skiing, and you're like, yeah, that's pretty impressive too. But it was nothing like that sequence in Moonraker. And yes, it goes a little bit sour there at the end with the circus tent, nonetheless. And then in subsequent rewatches, I recognize what an incredibly brilliant piece of filmmaking it is, and how it tells that story entirely visually, obviously, because he's not talking. It does it so well. And after, your third or fourth, you realize that the ground keeps going up and down at different levels because they shot this on hundreds of jumps to make, they have, I think, 20 seconds of time that they can do filming when they actually stage a shot. So subsequently, you watch it, you can see the flaws in it, but they were irrelevant. It was perfection on screen. Anyway, why did La La Land Records? Well, because they're coming out with Moonraker. But what was it that triggered that? La La Land Records also has a sample tracks of the soundtrack, which won't be out until sometime in December. I pre-ordered, believe me, but they have their sample tracks, and one of those is Freefall, Plane Fight and Freefall, I think is what it's called. And fun fact, the Moonraker score was done in France. I don't know whether it was orchestrated in France or mastered. It was mastered in France. They do the score music, and then they make the film, and they make the soundtrack album, which, came out in 1979 and is about 7.5 minutes long. It's longer than that, but feels like it's 7.5 minutes long. And then I've heard various stories about this. I'm just going to pass along what I've gleaned from this. Somebody stole the master tapes and they disappeared from the French studio. And so when they came along 20 years later, and for the Bond films, and they were doing the remastered soundtracks on CD, there's a little disclaimer in the Moonraker one. All the others have extra tracks and whatnot, but there's a little disclaimer in the Moonraker one that says, sorry, somebody stole the tapes. So there is no music for us to make a bigger release of the soundtrack. So when I saw this Moonraker soundtrack, which is 2 discs, and has what appears to be pretty much all of the music from the gun barrel to an extended version of the disco final Moonraker theme, plus then the original album, plus then some other tracks. Super, super excited. But listening to those, when I listen to that sample track, I can see every movement. I can see every cut. I can see every twist in that plot tied to the music. It's just a beautiful piece of music that has been locked to the action in that sequence, and I love it. And of course, it's the James Bond theme too, which the Moonraker album had almost none of, which is a crime. Whenever you put out a James Bond soundtrack and you don't have the James Bond theme in it somewhere, you're doing it wrong. And they did a lot of them wrong over the years. But anyway, it's there, and I am eagerly awaiting this soundtrack to arrive. And I will probably nerd out again when it gets here.